Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis and today I'm really excited to bring you the Mathhammering of our new Blightlord Terminators. Are they back? They have been stuck in the back of my collection cabinet collecting dust for a couple of couple of seasons now, but is this their time to shine? Can they do a lot of damage now? And spoiler, yes, there will be some huge damage and some very nice buffing going on. So let's get started. So today, the 30th of April, I'm waiting for the codex to arrive. Now it's just waiting time and Mathhammering away. And my computer is on smoking a lot of calculations going on and a lot of spreadsheets to be able to give you the data in a way that you probably are easy to understand. Really happy to see also the channel subscribers increasing, so passing the 9,000 mark. So thanks everybody for subscribing the channel and commenting and posting and so on. I really appreciate all your effort or your support there. So as I said in this video, looking at Blightlord's Mathhammer, their datasheet, the weapons damage output, and what are the best loadouts, what leaders and buffs do we have access to, how much are the buffs, and then what damage can a squad do, 5-man or 10-man squad with or without leaders. I'll show you all this data. Also look at the durability and compare them to Deathshroud and Plague Marines, and overall per point comparison with said Deathshroud and Plague Marines before we reach to the summary and final conclusion. Before I start, a special thanks to all my YouTube members. If you would like to support my efforts even further, please consider being a member, and then you will get access to early videos, and also you can ask me directly more easy questions there, and I could post some more data for you there if you are interested. So looking at the datasheet for our new Codex Blightlords, the points, let's say, that we have printed in the Codex, now we can get them in 3 model version. This is basically the tainted cohort. Now this is playable, or if you only have these 3 guys. But as we will see, they are not very strong in 3-man configuration. 5 models 185 points and 10 models 370 points. The rumor points that I've used for this analysis is that the 5-man squad will be 118 points instead, otherwise it's the same. And major changes to the datasheet compared to the index. We start of course with a 5-inch move and toughness 7 that all our Terminators have gotten, so improvement here both for the toughness and the speed. I mean, the 4-inch was laughable. Now we can take them as 3 from the tainted cohort, but it's quite limited what weapons you can use. You can only use the weapons you see here. And now they have a new ability, the blistering Fusilade, and this is really strong. So this only counts if you have a starting strength of the squad of 5 or more, or if you have a character attached to the squad. So not the 3 guys cannot get the blistering Fusilade if they don't have a character. So when you make a ranged attack versus an afflicted unit, basically a unit under contagion or afflicted by the rules, then you get +1 strength and +1 AP to the weapons by 1. So basically the bolter here from strength 4, AP 0, damage 1, the combi bolter, that would be coming strength 5, AP -1, damage 1. If you add the contagion of -1 save, that's basically like having a strength 5, AP -2, damage 1 bolter that can unleash a lot of shots. So strong combos here with a nice ability tying into our contagion. So I really like these rules. Other changes, we have the Blight Launcher now becoming stronger. It has a blast rule and it's a D3 weapon, so you can get more shots if you are shooting at hordes or big units. And the blast will also have a strong synergy with Lord of Virulence, so this is even better for the Blight Launcher. And the other important change, of course, is the melee weapon, the Bubotic Blade, lethal hits, but now it's very important. This is damage 2 now. Previously, the Blightlords were really suffering with only damage 1 weapon. They had 4 attacks, now it's only 3 attacks, but it really makes up for it that you have a damage 2 weapon, so now they can clear out intercessors and make dents into other Terminators, as we will see. So the Flail of Corruption is 6 attacks, so double the attacks, less AP, but it's all still damage 2. Yeah, so still interesting, but previously the Flail of Corruption was much better than than the Bubotic Blade. Also, another change is that now we can get more special weapons in the squad. So for every 5, one of them can get the Blight Launcher, one of them can get the Reaper Autocannon, and one of them can get the Plague Spewer. Previously, you could only choose one to have either the Blight Launcher or the Reaper Autocannon. Now you can have both combinations here. So all in all, improvements all over the board for the datasheet of the Blightlords, and especially I really like the blistering Fusilade. Looking now at all their weapons and the baseline damage output. So let's look at the Combi Bolter and the Combi Weapon. The Combi Weapon can do mortal wounds, and what we can see, the Combi Bolter, this I haven't included Fusilade or any buffs like this here. Here you can see the damage across the variety of targets I'm typically simulating, and the Combi Bolter is better versus most targets, except things with invul saves and strong infantry with good saves, and like Terminators. There the Combi Weapon is better because it's critically wounding on 4+ and make devastating wounds, but unfortunately it's not hitting very well. It's only hitting on a 4+. You only get 1 shot, so if you're unlucky you will not do it, but it's better overall versus Terminators. Then if we look at the special weapons, here we have the Blight Launcher, the Reaper Autocannon, and the Plague Spewer, and all of them do more baseline damage than either the Combi Bolter or the Combi Weapon here, both versus infantry, and the average here you can see versus vehicles. So worth taking basically if you are looking at the damage. And then if we look at the melee damage, here you have the Bubotic Blade with lethal hits. We get some good damage, and especially as a damage 2 weapon, you have better chances versus marine equivalents here. So one of the Bubotic Blades should be able to kill 1 intercessor without any other buffs considered here. And the Flail of Corruption is better than the Bubotic Blade. You had twice the number of attacks, so this translates to higher damage output, but 1 less pip of AP. And then for the shooting ability, their blistering Fusilade, if we are shooting at something that is already under contagion, we can see here much higher damage, especially for let's say the Combi Bolter, quite increased here because it gets strength 5 and AP -1. That really helps its damage output. The Combi Weapon less impacted here because it's basically going for the mortal wounds. The AP doesn't really matter so much for the Combi Weapon, and of course we see something like Blight Launchers, Reaper Autocannon, and the Plague Spewer, all of them benefiting from shooting at afflicted targets, more strength, more AP. So all the special weapons seem to offer you more damage. So but if you take the Flail of Corruption, you get more damage in melee, but you will lose out on the shooting whatsoever. So if you want a pure long range shooting, if you really want to focus on the 24 range and not going to go close, you could consider not taking the Spewer and the Flail. The Flail, of course, only in melee, the Plague Spewer only at 12 inches. So one of the squads that could make sense, squad 1, we will have the Blight Launcher, the Reaper Autocannon, the Spewer, the Combi Bolter, and the Flail. You could take the Combi Weapon there as well, but I think the Combi Bolter has more buffing potential. This would be, let's say, maximum special weapons, and a squad 2, more long range, more shooting oriented, Blight Launcher, Reaper Autocannon, 3 Combi Bolters, or 3 Combi Weapons. Now let's look at their leaders and what buffs they can bring to the table, and of course a very good match for the Blightlords is the Lord of Virulence, which is expected to be 90 points. His virulent aura makes that when you do a ranged attack, you can reroll the wound roll, and this is strong for all the weapons. All the Blightlord's weapons really would benefit from rerolling all to wound, really strong, and also the Combi Weapon, of course, could benefit from scoring more mortal wounds there. And also the Blight Bombardment really helps out his special ability. The Blight Bombardment helps especially the Blightlords. You select one enemy unit within 30 inches and visible to the Lord of Virulence, and when you do friendly death card models that make a range attack, they can reroll hit roll of 1. So that will benefit basically all the weapons but not the Spewer, of course, which is auto hitting. And if the attack is made with a blast weapon, you can reroll the hit roll instead, and that would mean for the blast from the Blight Launcher, for example, then they would be rerolling all misses, and you could maybe fish for more lethal hits if you wanted with a Blight Launcher. So strong synergy with the shooty Blightlords. The Lord of Contagion, which is more expensive, 110 points. He gives sustained hits and lance keywords for melee weapons that in the unit he's leading, and this can be strong for the bubotic weapons. Lance for not so high strength weapons makes a big difference. Let's say he can turn back on 2+, but he doesn't, let's say, benefit their shooting weapons. And Lord of Contagion, as we saw in my video with the Deathshroud, he would also be benefiting from being able to deep strike, let's say 6-inch with the Deathshroud and coming into melee. Maybe for Blightlords, better to keep the Lord of Virulence there, or you could of course have multiple Lord of Contagions leading both Blightlords and Deathshroud. Finally, Typhus for 90 points. He gives -1 to be hit in melee. This doesn't stack now with our Contagion Plague, that is also -1 to be hit. Previously it was -1 weapon skill or ballistic skill on the enemy. But as I said also in my Deathshroud video, I think probably Typhus is better to stick with some Poxwalkers, because with his special Eater Plague, if you deal mortal wounds to yourself, some Poxwalkers might die, but instead of losing, let's say, an important Terminator with some bad dice. So how much does Lord of Virulence then buff the weapons in shooting from the Blightlords? And here we're looking step by step, multiple buffs stacking here. So if we look at the combi bolter dude versus infantry, this is the average of versus all the targets I was simulating in a couple of slides before. This is the baseline damage, let's say 0.3 wounds on average versus infantry. If we have the Fusilade just baseline here, we got an improvement of the damage. If we add the Lord of Virulence, rerolling all to wound, we get further buff. If we also select the enemy so that we can reroll the hit roll misses of 1, then we'll get even more damage. And then if we also have the Contagion -1 save, we'll be doing 1 wound on average at 24-inch with a combi bolter versus the average of the infantry here. So from the baseline up until, let's say, the buffed one, we already almost get 3 times more damage from our bolters, because the bolters are transformed to strength 5, AP -1, AP -2 basically, with Contagion -1 save, damage 1, and we're rerolling ones to hit, and we're rerolling all to wound. So all in all, much buffs stacking here. Also versus the vehicles, here we see the combi weapon also increasing in damage, but doesn't benefit as much from let's say the Fusilade, and as we saw before, so comparatively it gets less buff than the combi bolter. And here we can see the Blight Launcher also nicely increased, especially with the Blight Bomb, because here we will reroll all the hit misses, not only once because it's a blast weapon. Reaper autocannon, twice the damage if we stack everything here. Also versus vehicle, quite strong. The Spewer, not as much because it doesn't benefit, let's say, from rerolling hit rolls, but still all of the weapons are greatly increased by the Lord of Virulence here. And then Lord of Contagion, the buff he can do in melee. Here we have the bubotic blade. As we saw, the baseline damage output with no further buffs. If we add Lord of Contagion, we get sustained hits, and we have the lance on the charge. Here I'm assuming they just charge. And then you see we get, let's say, 25-50% more damage output by adding Lord of Contagion. If we also add the -1 save, we get even more damage. So going from, let's say, killing 1 intercessor to almost 2 intercessors with a bit of luck per bubotic blade. So that's quite strong. And the Flail of Corruption, also the same type of increase. It's the lance that really does a big difference, and the sustained hits as well. So really good buffs as well with the Lord of Contagion. So now moving on to a lot of data now for the squads. So the Deathshroud squad's damage output. This is the table without any leaders attached. So here we have 5 Blightlord Terminators with the configurations I was talking before: Blight Launcher, Reaper Autocannon, Flail and Spewer, and 1 combi bolter here. And this is long range shooting at 24-inch. This is not the best in long range. Here we have the combi bolter. We get more damage in long range, a 5-man squad, but it's not like you can take out huge amounts of enemies here from the long range 24-inch shooting. Here you can see the combi weapon, less damage on average, but more versus the elite infantry here, but less versus all other targets. And then if we go into the 12-inch shooting here, here we have the special weapon team is doing a good job, because the spear now comes into effect, and we get more damage output across the table. And if we move into melee, the flail squad does more than if you don't include the flail here. So here you can see some damage here. If we take the full man squad, 10 Blightlord Terminators, it's quite costly. But if we add this, and we do the shooting at 12-inch and do the damage in melee. This is the combined shooting and charging melee damage without leader. Still, we could kill with shooting and melee. We could kill 34 guardsmen, 15 marine equivalents, so that's really strong. We can kill 5 to 6 terminators, and we can do 11 to 20 wounds on various vehicles here. So not bad for just 10 Blightlord Terminators with no further buffs, stratagems, or leaders. And now if we add the leaders and the buffs that we have been discussing, then the damage is really increased. Here we have the big squad of 10 Blightlord Terminators with all the special weapons and Lord of Virulence. They are shooting at an afflicted enemy, so Fusilade is triggered. The Blight bombardment from the Lord of Virulence is active. We get reroll to hits. We have Contagion -1 save selected. And here at 12-inch shooting with a big squad, this is 460 points though, so it's quite hefty. Just by shooting at 12-inch, you could kill 27 guardsmen, 17 you can kill 12 marine equivalents, 5 terminators, and put 15 to 23 wounds on vehicles on average here. And if of course they do also melee damage, you can add here some crazy damage output figures here for the 10-man squad. If it's a bit too expensive, you can also do the 5-man squad. Of course, then you get lower damage output, but it could still be maybe better to save your money and have multiple squads. And finally down here, if we take the 10-man Blightlords with Lord of Contagion, this is a hefty 480 points. Then in melee, just in melee, we could kill 35 guardsmen, 23 marine equivalents. I mean, you would be running out of marine equivalents to kill with these squads, 8 terminators, and you could put 24 wounds on a big knight. So if you shot at it before, you could be taking out a big knight with a lot of Contagion in a 10-man special squad here. And here you can also see with the 5-man squad, still a lot of damage possible. So, of course, in order to benefit a lot from the Blightlord Terminators, you need to get their Fusilade ability working, giving them plus strength and plus AP to their shooting. So how do we get the enemy afflicted at range? There are 2 ways basically. Some other unit is close to the enemy here and put them under our contagion range. From second turn we have 6-inch contagion range. From third turn we have 9-inch contagion range. We can add 3 inches more with several ways. So if something like this forward tagging the enemy, then the Blightlord shooting at it would be able to benefit from the Fusilade. And we can also use some of our other units to afflict the enemies from range. So for example, if we have a small unit of Plague Marine, so the Plague Marines can shoot first. They select then the unit to becoming afflicted. It suffers contagion, and now the Blightlords can shoot with the Fusilade. And there are other multiple rules to give more units afflicted. In Mortarion's Hammer, for example, you can select a couple of units outside reach of your contagion bubble to become afflicted. There are blighted lands or signal pox in the Lord of Chosen. So there are a lot of abilities to make the enemy afflicted, so we really benefit from our Lord of Virulence and Blightlords. So switching a little bit away from the damage and going to durability, here I'm looking at a variety of weapons shooting or attacking our models. Here we have a Plague Marine, a Blightlord, and a Deathshroud model, and these numbers here indicate how many of these weapons would it take to kill one of these models here. So for example, we can see the Blightlord. A Blightlord could take 20 Stormbolters at half range shooting before being killed, 4 Warp Smites or 2.7 Brigand Avenger Chain Cannon to kill one Blightlord, so they're quite durable. And of course the Plague Marines not so durable as Blightlords and Deathshroud. Of course they are not, this is not point corrected, this is just the pure numbers. And if we look at the light weaponry here, we see that the Deathshroud now they have gone up to 4 wounds. They can tank more shots than the Blightlords, still they are costing more. But if we look at the heavy weaponry, now the Blightlords can take the similar amount of punishment as Deathshroud. With his heavy weaponry, the 4 wounds doesn't really help the Deathshroud, and all in all you are getting more value for your versus heavy weapons durability from your Blightlords. And here, if you get them -1 to be hit, you get some increase from the Blightlords, but this would also be an increase for the Plague Marines or the Deathshroud. Finally, last table, I promise. So this is overall per point comparison per 100 points, and this is basically all the assumed points I've told you so far. So here we have here we see all the different squads, and here we see the point cost, and then we see their damage versus our infantry at 24-inch, 12-inch, and melee damage output. And here's the damage the same versus vehicles, and here's the point corrected durability. The index 100 here would be an intercessor, and index 100 for heavy weapons would be a predator tank. So we see here baseline without adding some leaders. Here we have the Blightlord Terminators. They have better durability than the baseline Deathshroud or the baseline Plague Marines down here. And if we add a baseline damage output for let's say the squads with the special weapons, we get some nice melee damage here, 4.3 wounds on average per 100 point. The baseline for the Deathshroud Terminators is higher. Deathshroud Terminators typically are very strong in melee. And here we can see shooty Plague Marines not so good in melee, but melee oriented Plague Marines with heavy weapons and bubotic weapons are higher damage output than the melee of the Blightlords. But on the shooting part, here we get they are better than Deathshroud Terminator, and they are even better or very comparable to Plague Marines, which is quite new because in the previous, let's say, with the previous index rules, the Blightlords were neither good at melee or really at shooting, at least per point correction. But if we add when we add the leader Lord of Contagion, we are transforming their melee damage output, not as close as we get with Lord of Contagion at Deathshroud levels, but still quite stronger. Not as good as here we have the Plague Marines with heavy weaponry, melee weapons with Biologus Putrefier and the Plague Caster. This is their strong combo, so this is really strong for Plague Marines. If we add the Lord of Virulence, we select the Blight Bomb and things like that, we get quite high damage, quite high shooting damage, especially at 12 inches. And this is very strong and even comparable to a big squad of Plasma Blightlords, Plasma and Blight Launcher Plague Marines. The shooting damage is really comparable. This is also new because previously the Plague Marines offered always much higher damage output than the Blightlord Terminators. So really strong. And if we don't take the special weapons and we focus on the long range shooting, we get also much higher longer shooting than the other. Deathshroud can't shoot as far, and Plague Marines are not as good here as we can get Blightlord Terminators with a Lord of Virulence combo. So, reaching to the summary and final thoughts, the index Blightlords were quite sturdy, they were quite cheap, they had some durability, but they were hitting like wet noodles. All this now seems to have changed. They have much improved damage output in both melee with the damage tube swords and weapons, and they're shooting with a nice blistering Fusilades ability. This is really fun to use with versus afflicted targets. Lord of Virulence, really strong combo. We can take more special weapons possible in their squads. We can do a squad with all the special weapons. The Combi Bolter seems to be the more buffable and maybe more overall better choice, but Combi Weapon is more niche, anti-elite infantry. If you're playing with a lot of enemies that have a lot of invul saves, probably you can go with the Combi Weapon, but it needs to be infantry targets, let's say. Lord of Virulence, as we saw, really can increase their shooting damage. Very strong synergy. All the rules play nicely together, and thanks Games Workshop for a change for that. Lord of Contagion also can transform them in melee. They will not be as hard hitting as Deathshroud or heavy, let's say, melee oriented Plague Marines. Nevertheless, they are close to Deathshroud levels if Lord of Contagion joins them. But I think if you wanted, the Lord of Contagion is better to have with a Deathshroud, because then he benefits from 6-inch deep striking. A big blob of Blightlords can wipe out a lot of enemies. It's a major point investment. So 5-man squads with a leader can also do. I've shown you all the data. Maybe you can go back and pause and look at some of these figures. And I'm really thinking that Terminator heavy lists can really work. Maybe Lord of Contagions and Deathshroud, Lord of Virulence and Blightlord blocks, some Plague Marines for afflicting targets. That could be a really nasty combos. And even further, more strats and so on could be buffing them. So I think now it's the time that I have to dust out my Blightlords and take them out for a spin. I would be really enjoying to run to have a 10-man squad smash into a big knight or some big target and take it out to the surprise of my opponent. So what do you think about this video? Post your questions in this video or comments. Please press like and subscribe to my channel, helping me maybe even go to the 10,000 subscribers mark. And special thanks, and if you want, as I said, to further support my efforts, please consider becoming a YouTube member. And with these words, General Jannis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.